So, first of all, this is my workbench, and I have a hot air gun. I got some tools and pliers and screwdrivers, a soldering iron, of course, and some other good to have stuff. The camera angle is a little bit off here, but I don't really have a tripod. I took an empty Pringles can and stuck my phone in it. And it's working. The speaker we're working on today is an Anker Soundcore 2. And this speaker I already been in twice before, so I kind of already knew what I'm getting into. I already knew what the problem was from the beginning, or kind of had an idea because it was the same problem as the last time. And I will explain further once we get further into the video. And here I'm removing the front grille in order to reach the screws and everything from behind. Sorry about the narrative, but there is so much noise around me where I'm living at the moment. They are renovating houses and you wouldn't be able to hear anything I'm saying, so this is why I'm narrating the video instead. And there we go, I popped up the front cover and taking a quick look to see what we got going on, and here I realized that I don't have my screwdrivers kit, so I ran away and picked that up. It was in my living room. There we go. So here I just need to find the right bit, which isn't really that hard, but it's very important to choose the right one, because if you're using a too small bit, you might strip out the head of the screw instead, which is causing everything to be a lot more irritating, and it takes a lot more time than you actually want it to. And there we go, first screw out. And we got a bunch of more screws, so just wait until I get them out. And I can also hear you sit at home and screaming and asking why. Why are you repairing a speaker that costs 39 euros with shipping on Amazon? And it's not because of the value of the speaker, it's because I think it's fun. I think it's enjoyable to try to repair things instead of just go and buy new stuff. I usually bring home stuff I find, like TVs and stuff I find on the street, and take them home and do some investigation. And sometimes I can get them to work, and then I either use them or I sell them cheaply to someone, and brings new life into old tech, old damaged tech. Here we are removing the front piece that's holding the speakers and everything in place. That needs to be removed, and you need to be a bit careful when you remove that, because there is a rubber list or rubber seal behind, to make sure that you don't get any dust and debris or any unnecessary amount of water. I don't think this speaker is waterproof, but it's of course helping to have that list. Here is a cable going up. I'm suspecting that that's for a microphone, but I'm not sure. But that cable needs to be removed. And it's very small, so you have to be careful when you remove it from its socket. But there it's out. And this is the rubber list I was talking about, or the rubber seal that sits on the inside. And we're moving that to the side. And then we keep on going with next step, which is to remove the actual speakers, which are basically just held down and then screwed in between the front plate and the screw mounts. And there is two tabs that you need to connect the speaker to make sure that you're getting sound out of it. And it doesn't really matter if you reverse the speakers. There's the motherboard, and that's the only screw holding down the motherboard. So let's remove that next. And here we take out the entire motherboard, and just making sure that there is nothing more. I know the battery connector or the battery cable is there, but making sure that there is nothing else. The battery cable is removed, and we can keep on going to the next step. And this I'm pointing on the controller, and I have a bunch of them in my graveyard. I don't know how many speakers I've been taking apart, because I don't really throw anything away. If I take something apart, I try to save at least something that might be of value when I come to repair something else. And here is the battery pack. And as you can see, one cell is pink and the other one is gray. And the pink one is a cell that I replaced previously about a month, maybe 1.5 ago. That died, it didn't hold any charge at all, and the speaker didn't. It started when you had a cable in, but it sounded horrible, and it's because both cells is needed. So here I'm removing the duct tape, and I can hear you sitting at home and screaming and telling me that, yeah, but you shouldn't be using duct tape. There is so many better options. Yeah, probably, but I used what I have at hand, and it's working fantastic. It's maybe a little bit overkill, but it's extremely durable, so I'm not really afraid that anything is gonna come loose when I'm using duct tape. And I have a little bit of a bad camera angle here, so you can't really see what I'm doing at the moment. But I'm coming back here. Now I'm gonna do some testing to make sure that my theory is correct, because my theory in this case is that the gray cell can't hold a charge, and just dropping it right away to below where it needs to be in order to get the speaker to work. Here I'm running away because I realized that, oh, I forgot my beer in the living room, and you know, I like beer. So I went away and grabbed that. There we go. And time to do some measurement, and now I'm just using my roll of soft solder to put up my multimeter at an angle so you can see what it's actually saying as well, because this is kind of gonna prove my theory. So first of all, I'm measuring my cell, or the cell that this cell comes from an old laptop battery that was only used for a couple of months, and as you see, it's still holding 4 volts, a little bit above, but 4 volts is really good. 4.20 is maximum of what you want to charge these cells with. And keep on going. I'm measuring one more time to make sure that I didn't get anything wrong, and nope, I have 4 volts. And now I'm measuring the gray cell, and as you see, it starts on 1.95 volts and it keeps on dropping until, yeah, right around here. And that's not even close to what the speaker needs to function. And even if you have a cable plugged in, that cable is not going to be able to supply enough power, because you only get 5 volt out of the USB, which is from the charging. But if one of the cells are dead, it's obviously not going to work. So now I'm not entirely sure of where I went, but I'm sure I will be back any second now. Yes, I'm picking up batteries. I went to my graveyard and I'm picking up some more cells coming from various tech pieces that I've been taking apart. Saving everything that might be of value, all the 18650 cells that still can hold a charge, and components. I have assortment boxes with components and connectors and all kinds of stuff that I think might be of use forward on, or I can use it in something else. I don't really like to throw away. I mean, of course I'm not gonna keep everything, but everything that might hold value or something that I can reuse, that I will keep. Of course, I also go through my graveyard from time to time and throwing away stuff that might not have any value at all, or rather lost its value with time. And now I'm starting to get ready to do some measurements again to make sure that, especially the pink cells, because the gray cells that you see here in the bottom left of the menu, or in the bottom left of the video, that cell I know don't hold the charge, because that was the cell that was damaged the last time. It comes from the same speaker or from the same battery pack. And so here I'm gonna do some measurements to make sure that the batteries are good, and this holds 2.9, which is good. That's really good for being laying around for months. 2.7, it says minus because I have the polarities wrong, but it doesn't matter because you will still get the same reading, it's just saying minus. And 2.7, and 2.7, and almost nothing. It keeps on dropping to 0.2 approximately, and that's not even close enough to what we will need for the speaker. So that cell is most definitely gone. And this is the cell. It comes from the same speaker. I don't know the age of the speaker or anything like that. I got it from a friend who asked me to look at it to see if I could fix it, and I fixed it, and it only worked for about one charge, and then it wasn't possible to charge it anymore. So he told me that it's, do what you want with it, throw it away or whatever. If you can fix it, then keep it and use it for yourself. So here I'm doing an attempt to get myself a Bluetooth speaker. Here I just decide which cell I want to use because I need a cell with solderable solder. I can't really speak. English isn't really my first language neither, but I need to be able to solder the battery tabs together without putting too much heat on top of the batteries, because these cells you can solder them, but I don't really like heat and I don't want to apply too much heat directly on the cell neither. So here I'm trying to find a better way to do this. And after looking around at the cells and see what the tabs are looking like, I made a decision. And so here I'm collecting all the cells I'm not gonna use and just to put them back into my graveyard, because they are still in good shape. I can still use them for something else forward on. And coming back and taking a quick look at what's coming up, and here I'm trying to decide which soldering tip to use, which tip for my soldering iron to use in order to solder this properly. And it's not really super important. It's you want to choose a tip that's suitable. The size isn't really that important, but you need a tip that's suitable. Of course, the size of the tip also depends on what you're gonna solder. If you're gonna solder something that's extremely small and delicate, then you want a more finer tip. In my case, I'm actually using a pretty big tip, and it's simply because the heat. Yeah, I get more heat during a shorter time compared to if I'm using a thinner tip. It's gonna take a lot longer to heat up the area where I need to solder. Here I'm adjusting down the heat of the soldering iron. This is just a super cheap soldering iron from, I think I ordered it on Amazon. And it's nothing fancy, it's nothing, nothing I would brag about, but it works great for the money I spent on it. Of course, I'm gonna invest in better equipment, but I'm also not really made of money. And what I'm doing is as a hobby, so I can't really burn money. And if I'm not gonna make any money back of it, if I would have a business, it would be a completely different thing. Then I would invest in proper equipment. But as a hobbyist, this works great. And here I'm also just double checking inside the speaker to make sure that if I'm soldering it in both ends, that the solder blob or the solder isn't gonna stick out too much to make the battery not fit anymore, or the battery pack. And so I'm just double checking here and making sure. This is what I mean with my bad camera angle. You couldn't really see what I did. And in a second I'm gonna start to desolder the pink cell from the gray one so we can separate them, because that's the whole point of this endeavor. We need to exchange that gray cell to the new pink one that I found. So apparently I ran away. I'm not entirely sure where I went to do, but I'm suspecting that I went to grab a new beer because you need fuel. And here I'm back again. Yes, I did grab a new beer. All right, so let's keep on going. And here I realized that I actually need a solder, so I can't use that to prop up the battery pack to see what's going on. And cleaning off the tip and making sure that it's hot enough. Because if it's not hot enough, you need to wait until it gets hot enough. Because I mean, you can try to solder anyway, but as I said, these are lipo cells. I don't like to put too much heat on them. I don't know, maybe nothing is gonna happen, but it's the principle of things. You shouldn't heat too much because I don't think there is a single battery anywhere on the planet that's gonna like too much heat. And here I managed to separate the tabs, so I get the cells separated from one of the sides. And yeah, exactly, good boy. You need to clean the tip before you put the iron back. Make sure that you always clean the tip and you use good. I mean, it's this, as I said, this was a cheap soldering iron, but it actually works very well. The tips have degraded a bit, and I probably used this for like half a year now. So for a hobbyist, it works very well. Of course, there are better options, but I'm not sure if I want to burn $100 on a soldering iron when I'm just, doing hobbyist stuff. Then a soldering iron for $15 works just as well. And here I'm removing, if you look at the backside or where the batteries are joined together, or the cells rather are joined together on the backside, you have a white cable going up to the charging port. And I'm pretty sure that that is to make sure that the cells are getting balanced. So it's a balance cable to make sure that no cell is getting more charge than the other one. And instead of resoldering just the cable, I try to remove the whole tab so I can pre-use it. Here I did the same thing with the top part of the tab that's actually attached to the BMS, or the battery management system. So I can remove the gray cell without doing too much harm to the rest of the battery pack. And measuring again to make sure that, and here you see I started quite high and it keeps on dropping and dropping and dropping and dropping way below a good threshold. So this is obviously not a good battery. I release and then I try again, and as you see, as soon as I release, it keeps going up to 1.5, 1.7, and as soon as I start putting load on it again and measure it, it just drops everything. So this cell is obviously no bueno. So this cell is, there we go, putting that away, taking the new cell. And in a couple of seconds, I'm gonna fail a little bit. Not anything disastrous. I realize it in time, of course, or luckily. But I'm starting to put the cells, I'm aligning them, and then I'm taping them together before I start soldering to make sure that everything is right where it's supposed to be. So here I'm aligning them and making sure that all the tabs and everything is in a solderable position. And I'm taking some tape, and you're gonna see where I'm failing in a second. Taking the tape and putting them together, and after securing the tape properly to make sure that it's not gonna move around or disconnect or anything like that, I just make sure properly that everything is well connected. And yeah, here I realized that I have the polarity wrong on the cell that I just installed, so I need to remove the tape again. And while I'm doing this, I should also mention that I'm a hobbyist. I'm doing this as a fun thing. I'm not professional by any means. A professional is usually someone who's been working with it for years, and someone who might even be educated, and someone who has a lot more knowledge than I do. I don't. I do this as, something fun. I like to tinker around with electronics, and I can promise you, I probably destroyed more things that I have saved, at least previous in my life. Now I'm starting to get a hang of what I can do and so forth, so things are getting better. But I want to say that I'm no professional at all. If you have broken stuff, if you live in Barcelona and you have broken stuff that you want to get fixed, it doesn't really matter what it is. I'm not really gonna ask for any money for it because it's a hobby thing. I'm doing it because it's fun. Of course, if I need to order parts and stuff like that, that's a completely different thing. Then of course there's gonna be a cost involved, but this is mainly this is mainly just a hobby thing that I'm doing, and I have a couple of people around me, lot of friends and stuff that comes to me with broken stuff that I help them to fix, and I can fix some things. As I said, I'm no expert. I can't repair everything. And here we go. I'm adding some flux, and I know what you're saying. Don't use cheap ass flux. Don't use blah 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 blah. I know. But using cheap flux is better than no flux. And using no flux is like wiping your ass without toilet paper. It's just messy and it requires a lot more work afterwards. So it's better to be on the safe side and actually use flux. So cleaning off the soldering iron again, or the tip, to make sure that it's as clean as I can possibly get it before I start to solder the tab from the battery to the tab. Soldering tab that's actually on the battery management system, and these were tack welded before. And I mean that would of course be the better option. It would be a lot better if I would have tack welded them, but I don't have that. I have to work with what tools I have and what I have been able to invest in up until now. So now it's soldered on, and I got the solid connection. So now we turn it around and we look at the back side. I'm just making sure that the cells are aligned also to make it easier. And there we go. We need to put that tab over. And once the tab is on, I also need to fold the tabs from the cells, because I always try to save at least a couple of millimeters of those tabs. If I need to reuse the batteries for something else, it's better to keep them, because then I can solder the tabs together rather than putting the heat right on top of the battery, or rather the anode or the cathode, because that's no bueno. Now I'm adding some more of my cheap flux. And for you who don't know what it is, flux is basically just a, well, I don't really know what to call it. It's something you're adding before you're soldering to make sure that your solder is actually floating out good, and it's adhering properly to the surfaces that you want to solder together. You might be able to solder without flux also, but it's just the principle of things. You want at least a little bit of solder to make sure that you get a good connection. And this is what I'm doing at the moment. I'm adding solder to those tabs without putting too much heat on the cell per se, because putting too much heat, I think that would bring down the lifespan of the cell, and I don't want to do that. I want this to last for as long as possible. And even if it would break, I wouldn't throw it out. I would start to see what happened, what went wrong, and how I keep on going. So now that end is solid also. Everything is solid. And now I'm taking a little bit more duct tape and adding to the bottom. I don't think I have to, because there is nothing that can make a short circuit on the back part of the battery pack. But just for the principle of things and making sure that nothing bad is gonna happen, I'm gonna add it anyway. And here I'm adding and making sure that I'm getting it sealed up, because it's better safe than sorry, because you're gonna regret it pretty quickly if you fail, and I can almost guarantee that nobody wants that. I've seen enough lipo cells turning into fumes and fire and smoke, and it's no fun. I failed with a phone I tried to repair at one point, and that battery basically burst into flames in my face. So I'm a bit extra careful now. I burned off enough eyebrows. Here I'm measuring the whole pack, and I'm getting 6.75, which is still pretty good, because one of the cells was almost fully charged and the other one held, I would say, a little bit less than half a charge. So I would still say that this is good. And After measuring and realize that everything is fine, there is already in the bottom of the case here, I already put new tape to just to hold the whole battery pack down to make sure that it doesn't wobble around or anything within the speaker once you put it back, because that will greatly reduce both the lifespan of the cables and everything that's gonna bounce around in there. And it's also gonna greatly reduce the sound because it's gonna cause vibrations and other things that you don't really want when you're listening to your favorite music or whatever you're using the speaker for. And now I'm connected the battery pack and I'm putting back the motherboard. Here I'm just making sure that everything is aligned properly, so the charging cables and AUX port or auxiliary port is available if you would like to use them. Charging port is extra important because otherwise you can't really charge the battery. And now it's back in its spot. And I really like the repair mat that I'm using in the background here, because I have some spots that are magnetic where you can place the screws and you can place them in a certain order. And there is so many different ways. This repair mat was super cheap and I don't remember what I paid for it, but it's really nice because it's if you're using a hot diodes gun to repair, for example, if you're doing reflow or something on a motherboard, that you're gonna need something to remove that heat because the whole motherboard is gonna get extremely hot. And if you do that right on a wooden table, you're gonna get it burnt. So this mat is actually absorbing very much of that heat. Here I'm just double checking the speakers to make sure that I can't reverse them or make anything wrong, which I can't. If you accidentally mix up right to left, it's not going to be a problem because everything is reversed on the motherboard. Here I need to bend back the tabs a little bit because this speaker was still in the correct place, but the tabs were bent back, so I could see when I removed it that it put a lot of pressure on the connectors, and that's not really something that you want neither. And here the speakers are back. So now we need the front piece and the little gasket that goes around it to protect it from dust and debris, all kinds of other stuff that you don't really want to get inside your speaker, because that's will, as I mentioned before, that will greatly reduce the lifespan of the speaker, and that's not something that we want. And now I'm just checking which way it's supposed to go because I need to get the microphone back in. I think it's a microphone. It might be some kind of sensor or something like that also, but I'm pretty sure that it's a microphone because I can't really see the use of anything else in a Bluetooth speaker. So here I'm putting it back, and it's a very small connector, so you need to make sure that you align it properly before you start pushing it down, because otherwise you're gonna bend the pins, and then maybe you even break the pins, and then you're gonna sit there and scratch your head and wonder what am I gonna do now. In my case, it wouldn't really be that big of a deal because I have a ton of connectors and stuff that I've been collecting during the last couple of years when I've been doing these kinds of repair. Same with pretty much here I'm trying to start it, which obviously won't happen because one of the cells is doesn't hold a charge. So before I screw everything together, now I'm just walking away way in the background. I'm walking away to my charger that I'm using for. I have a multi-charger that I can use for all kinds of devices, both USB-C. It has a micro USB. It has a charger for iPhone, both old and new, and I have a bunch of stuff just to be able to. I mean, if you're a hobbyist and you want that, it didn't really cost that much. I think I paid like 15 bucks or something in total for everything I have to be able to test. The only thing that I don't have yet and that I want is a USB power tester, so I can, if you get a broken phone or something sent into you and you want to make sure that you know what's the problem, then you can measure right away. Okay, the battery is not taking any charge. Then it's either the battery or the charging circuit somewhere. And after checking, the speaker starts up and it sounded okay. And of course, it's gonna need to be properly charged so the cells get balanced. But now I can screw everything together again. So let's check this out. I'm just gonna screw everything together and then we keep on going with the last part. And of course another sip of beer. So now I'm taking the front cover of the grill or whatever you wanna call it and just bending it a little bit because I accidentally bent it a little bit when I pried it off earlier, which will happen, but that's not that big of a deal as long as you align it back. You need to bend it a little bit to make sure that it gets right on the money. And pushing it back, just making sure that it's all it's fitting and being where it's supposed to be. And there we go. The speaker is back together. And now it's gonna go on the charger for at least 12 hours, maybe even longer. I'm gonna charge it until it says it's finished. It's gonna stay there. And then we go over to some testing. And spoiler alert, it works amazing.